here we go. TPC 118, June 19th, 2020, 2:09 p.m. Eastern Time. The chain of events that has led me to this guest, having on my older brother's high school friend, JP Veriano, his friend, Nick Phelps, his friend, Dan Libby, his brother, David Libby, his former boss, I don't know how to say your last name, Greg Henneman?
Yeah, you got it.
Beautiful. So that is how we...
So what was that, like 9 degrees of separation?
It is. I mean, we are, at this point, I think it's perfectly rational to assume I can get Elon Musk on, because it's just this many degrees of separation. I know. Well, actually, I did email them. They didn't get back to me, but I did get a formal rejection from General Mattis, so...
Wow.
Yeah, so can't get everyone, but aim for the stars, I guess.
At least you got a rejection.
I know. That's how I look at it, man. I look at it as a win. I'm like, I got a rejection. So yeah.
He knows who I am.
He knows who I am. I have value. Yeah.
Understands me.
Yeah, no, the real pain is when I don't even get a rejection. It's just like,
Not even eye contact.
Yeah, I know, right? I did get like a loose, almost cease and desist from Northrop Grumman, trying to get them to talk about the B-21 Raider. So, yeah, learned my lesson with defense contractors. Stopped contacting them. So I had on David Libby 2 weeks ago, after there was an article I saw online on Reddit, on the subreddit r/special access, about the F-117 having air-to-air capabilities. I talked to him. Right. He said he called you. And I thought he was going to have the inside scoop. I was like, I'm about to get the story. And he came on the podcast. Well, I texted him that, and he goes, send me that link. And I was like, okay. And he goes, I need to make some phone calls. And I was like, uh-oh. He came on and was like, yeah, man, I have no idea what that is. And I was like, what? And he was like, so I'm going to put you in contact with my boss. So, roundabout way, that's where we are here now. And I have some questions from the people on that subreddit to ask you. We'll do that towards the end. So why don't you just introduce yourself? Because as always, I'm just talking myself like an idiot without letting the guest speak. So would you introduce yourself, sir?
I'm Greg Henneman. I joined the Air Force in 1986. Got to be there to watch the Berlin Wall fall, the end of the Cold War. Spent the first 8 years of my career in what was called subsistence operations. We can make anything sound fancy.
Yeah.
And what that meant was basically a food supply type role. So worked in the commissaries, worked in troop support that provided food to the dining halls, the clubs, the different facilities on base. I was at Rhein-Main Air Base in Germany during Desert Storm, and we provided all the food that went to all of the troops that were deployed in Desert Storm, and then provided food for numerous humanitarian operations, from delivering food to the Kurds in northern Iraq to Somalia and anywhere that we wanted to feed people. That's kind of what we did. Mm-hmm. I didn't join the Air Force to do that job. In fact, I worked in a grocery store in high school and joined the Air Force to get away from that. But they saw, you got experience with this.
Yeah,
you can do some more.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of I had fun with that job, but it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life, and so I complained a lot. And then finally, the Air Force relented and said, "How would you like to be a historian?" I'm like, perfect.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I started that in 1994. I was a historian at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia with the F-15s. Went from there to Holloman Air Force Base with F-117s. Went from there to Lakenheath with the F-15s and back to Holloman a second time, once again with the F-117s.
Yeah.
Deployed to Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Italy, and so I had a pretty amazing 20-year career. Probably a little more than half of that was overseas. So, got to have really incredible experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you think about the recent revelations that the F-117 had air-to-air capabilities?
I don't know who your listeners are, and part of my anxiety of doing this podcast is I don't want to disappoint anybody, and I will say up front, I retired from the Air Force in 2006, and I now serve as a pastor at a place called the Church for All People in Columbus, Ohio, and I haven't really kept up with a lot of things.
Yeah,
and so I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes or disappoint anybody. Last week I saw a news article that said, a Soviet capable bomber flew close to Alaska. Well, every bomber is nuclear capable.
Yeah.
The F-15s that are intercepting, the bomber are nuclear capable.
Yeah.
So in the history of the F-117 and in the history of any plane, there's any scenario you can imagine was considered and is considered, and what if we did this and what if we did that, and so I'm sure those types of scenarios were discussed, but at least from I started with the F-117s in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wasn't there, when it was still a black program, and I don't know everything that was on the table at different times. It does not surprise me that somebody would say, hey, this could be a contingency.
Mm-hmm.
This could be something that we would do. But I also think it would have been a pretty unlikely contingency.
Yeah.
If you got F-15s that can do air-to-air stuff from 25 miles away, why would you? The F-117 had rather limited capabilities. You've got 2 internal bombs that you can carry. I mean, when I was a historian, just like I might disappoint some of your listeners.
Hey, you can't.
I've been disappointing people since 1960.
Hey, no. You said that earlier. You're not disappointing anyone, man.
Okay.
There's trust me. You come on this podcast. I have friends come on this podcast, and we talk about what batteries are better for our Xbox controllers. You can't disappoint anyone, man. All right, don't have any anxiety. I'm living above my parents' garage.
Here's an example of where I have agitated people.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I was the historian for the F-117.
Yeah.
And I would often say to people, including pilots, this isn't a fighter plane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an attack plane, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're carrying 2 internal bombs.
Yeah.
You're not
yeah.
typical, by definition, fighter aircraft.
Yeah.
I think, to have the title, again, I'm a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
See, I'm gonna disappoint some people. I'm gonna make somebody angry.
Yeah.
To be able to call yourself a fighter pilot means something.
Yeah.
But the F-117 it's really an air to ground. It's really an attack plane.
Yeah.
And so so I was a historian, and every year I would have to qualify in the M16 to be ready. If we got in the place of a war where we're depending on the historian to shoot at the enemy, we're in bad shape.
Yeah.
If we're in a place in air-to-air combat where we're depending on the F-117, I mean, I love the F-117. I love the program. I'm dear friends with some of the people who are part of it to this day. But that was not its optimal designed mission.
Yeah.
So I think it's really possible that somebody looked at that as here's one type of contingency that could happen. But again, we got a whole lot of really good F-15s that are designed to do that. Using the F-117 for that doesn't seem like the right tool for the job.
Yeah, it definitely does seem. Yeah, when you said if they're relying on the historian to use an M16, that makes me think of Somalia, the Battle of Mogadishu, how they had cooks going out in the APCs, and it's like, hey man, things aren't going off so well.
Things have gotten bad.
Yeah, if the guy that's flipping burgers is now flipping grenades out of the top, it's like, whew, we are not planned for this. But yeah, it does seem odd. That's what I thought initially when I saw that the F-117 could. I was thinking that this was like a super contingency where, the country's been decimated and we are now relying on the F-117 to provide air-to-air defense of the border. That was my initial thought when I first saw it. But I looked into it more and then it said it was capable. So I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. If you really wanted to sneak up on someone, what better plane to do it? But what David pointed out is that it's a target of opportunity, so it's not even necessarily planned, which would mean that you kind of, if you have an EpiPen, right? You don't use it going, I'm going to use this today. You carry it around if you have to use it, but you always have to have it. So to be a target of opportunity, I didn't realize that till he pointed it out, that that's what the article did say, which would mean that you always have to carry that. Right? So what? Where would they put it?
Yeah. Well,
what are they doing with it?
That was my question to David.
Yeah. Where do they put it?
Yeah, and where they put it then defeats all of the radar absorbance, the design, because even as the F-117 is used in all other scenarios, the two bombs are inside it, the door is open, and they drop out, right?
Yeah.
And for that moment that those doors, here, they do like this, the moment that those doors go from this to this, so the bombs can drop out, the radar signature gets bigger.
Skyrockets. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're going to put some, a couple of AIM-120s on there, well, what's your radar signature now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Ben Rich talks about that in Skunkworks. He says how some pilots were talking about Desert Storm and how after they dropped their bombs, one of them was like, the bomb bay doors wouldn't close. Yeah, and he was like, I knew that I was probably lighting up. And he goes, normally rockets were just flying past us because they couldn't touch us. He goes, and then I saw one start arcing up and he's like, and I could only see a little bit, which means I was looking at it straight on. And he was like, this thing was coming up for me. And he goes, and at the last second, the door is shut. He goes, and then just like I went invisible, he goes, the missile stopped. He goes, it started tracking my last position, which obviously you're flying, so you go away. He goes, and it just stayed straight. But it was tracking him, and he shut the door. And I think another time they said that they got our call. They're like, hey, the radar's not, or the stealth isn't working. They're like, what do you mean it isn't working? And it was lighting up on all the radars. It turns out a couple screws, they said, were 3/16 of an inch protruding from the surface. Yeah. And it lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
No. So it's what David said in the last podcast I did with him is it would have to be like an internal like rotary launcher, correct? Yeah. That's the only way.
Yeah, because nothing else would make sense.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be sneaking up on anybody.
No, and if you're not sneaking up, then why use the F-117?
Exactly.
It's not for the looks. It's not for it's not for its flight capabilities, right?
Yeah. But again, I think a lot of things are could, and a lot of things are plans, and it's just like the military has contingency war plans for any scenario you could imagine.
Invade Canada.
And then every once in a while you'll see something in the news like, we've drawn up a war plan against North Korea, as if like something new is like, that's been there though. I mean, they've
got 9,000.
That's what they do for a living.
Yeah. They've got 9,000 of those.
Much more obscure scenarios than North Korea.
Yeah.
I'm just using that one because it's safe, because I don't want to get quoted saying,
No,
we're going to war against Papua New Guinea or something.
Gonna invade Madagascar. Yeah. I mean, they have contingency plans for zombie outbreaks.
Yeah,
they did.
So the fact that there is a contingency plan for an F-117 that could be used as an air-to-air, that's possible, I guess.
Yeah.
And not very likely.
Yeah. So now, would you know how it would hold that missile in there, or do you think that? Because I mean, just like you and Mr. Libby both said, we didn't know anything about it. The only logical conclusion I can draw is, and I have to keep my tinfoil hat off because I jump down conspiracy holes so fast, they're like a magnet. But if you guys didn't know that, well, then it clearly shows it had capabilities that were kept very close to the chest.
Well, and also, again, and I haven't looked at this stuff in quite a while. So if I get the years wrong, forgive me.
It doesn't matter,
but,
man.
I joined, with F-117s in '98. Dave might have got there a couple years before me. Maybe he was there in '96. Well, there's 15 plus years of history before we got there.
Yeah. Many
of that happened with Skunk Works before it was even a publicly acknowledged program.
Mm-hmm.
So there could have been a whole lot of stuff that happened before David and I showed up on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Or even before the F-117s got to Holloman.
Yeah.
So and I'm sure there was a lot of stuff tested and a lot of different contingencies explored prior to our time with them.
Yeah. The only thing I could think as someone with a biology degree, so it's early when you were like, I don't want to disappoint. I'm like, dude, I have a biology degree. I have people on that talk about stuff that is light years beyond my field of expertise. I'm just sitting here entertaining stuff like a monkey, just like, oh, cool. So, super relaxed, man. It doesn't matter. If anyone doesn't like it, stop watching. I don't care. Relax. But as someone with a biology degree, so my opinion on aerospace, I guess plans or techniques or tactics don't really hold any weight, but who cares? It's my podcast. We'll go with it. I thought, what a better way to pull off an assassination or take out a VIP aircraft. You needed to you put an F-117 up there that just vanishes on radar, put it up at night on a moonless night, and you go sneak up on some, I don't know, doesn't even have to be a Khrushchev or a Boris Yeltsin. You just take out, you want one of the guys gone, a KGB guy, a nuclear scientist, and they're on this plane. Man, what better way to just sneak up and just bloop, take them out?
But you don't even have to sneak up on anybody. I have a friend of mine that was an F-15 pilot from Lake and Heath, and I'm trying to remember if this was, it must have been when things were going on with Bosnia, and he had fired at an enemy aircraft, and it was like 25 miles away.
Yeah.
So, you don't have to sneak up on anybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In order to shoot them down.
Oh, yeah.
So again, I'm not sure what the F-117 would bring to air-to-air that a number of other air-to-air planes couldn't achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about sneak up so they don't pull any defensive maneuvers. I was thinking more of plausible deniability. I mean, you really just want to know, Because even if you could sneak up with an F-15 and take out a commercial airliner, like, oh, you could do it, but they would know someone was there. Versus you come up with something that there's just no radar, and let's say you still tag it from 25 miles away. Yeah, sure, they'll know a missile hit it, but if they're like, "Hey, it was you," it'd be like, "What do you mean it was us? Can we see the radar?" Like, and there is no radar, so it'd be, if a person of importance just dies from radiation poisoning, like, everyone knows it was radiation poisoning, but if you can't tell which intelligence agency did it, well, that's where the value lies. So that was what I was thinking is, sure, they would know a missile blew it up. There's no hiding that. But, I mean, you just want to go up and be like, we don't know what happened, What better way than to just get an F-117 up there and just stealthily deploy that,
But also, remember that the F-117 has a low radar signature. It is not invisible.
Yeah, not invisible. Yeah.
I think a lot of times we've portrayed this image that it has no radar signature and nobody can see it. It's, in the technical terms, it's low observable.
Yeah.
There is a signature to it.
Yeah. But it just kind of fades. You get so small, you're also picking up everything else that's small. Right. So which one of these dots are bumblebees, and which one is a fighter pilot or a fighter jet bringing in two payloads of death. So I don't know, man. It's an intriguing thing. Do you know anything about? And I don't. But do you know anything about like the F-117s that are still being used or still being spotted out at like Holloman and Tonopah?
No. So I left in 2006, and that's when they were really putting plans in place to end the F-117 program. And I haven't really kept up with it since then. I've seen a couple things on the internet, little stories that pop up, but I'm not even really aware of. I was at Nellis and I saw a bunch of the F-117s in was it the Boneyard or which is a bit heartbreaking for someone who's pretty close to all this.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised because, and I'm not an unbiased person in this. I think that the F-117 brought a unique capability. As a lowly historian, I think it was unfortunate to lose that capability. I think a lot of things were done in order to justify, funding for the F-22, which, again, I haven't kept up with stuff, but there's been a lot of public reports about, disappointment with the F-22.
Yeah.
And so, it would not at all surprise me if, a smaller number of F-117s were kept to, even for training purposes. I think we would be foolish to think we're the only country in the world that wants stealth capability.
It's
so, if there's, some element of, training exercises where you're flying against, other stealth capable aircraft, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I because there are reports of, I think there are reports of them being flown in still over some country. I don't want to name which ones because I don't know which ones off the top of my head, but still there's
Madagascar.
Madagascar, Papua New Guinea,
that King Julian.
Hey man, don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on them. You got to respect your enemy. They'll come up right behind us. We're preparing for China, Russia, and India. Madagascar is going to come down. They're going to go over the world. They're going to come down over the North Pole, and no one's going to see it come. They're going to have some hypersonic suborbitals. Don't sleep on Madagascar. But But I guess some of the F-117s are still, I think, over Libya. I believe over Afghanistan. So they're still being spotted over there, which is, I mean, on one hand, it makes sense. I mean, they're so far behind us. Why even waste money and crew with the B-2 when you can put in the B team or the C team, and it doesn't matter because you're still, they're still in caves, so it doesn't matter.
But are there even... So the F-117 was normally used to go after targets, where you're using that stealth capability.
Yeah.
That would be, more risky for, an F-16 or something else to take out. It just makes me curious, what targets could possibly be left in Afghanistan or Libya that would need that capability? Even, I was with the F-117s and was the historian, when we were bombing Serbia. And after a few weeks, it got to the point of, the F-117s had really taken out the targets that they came to take out. And there was no need for that type of a capability. So the F-117s returned to Holloman long before the bombing was over in Serbia. So it just makes me wonder what could be left in Afghanistan or Libya that would require them.
Right? Yeah, you're right. Because I mean, we could throw over some like World War I biplanes, right? It doesn't matter, It really doesn't. Put some Sopwith camels.
They didn't have very much metal, so they're probably pretty low observable.
Probably, yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you go up there with canvas and like balsa wood. No one's gonna see you. No cockpit.
I don't know that you're going to be able to lift,
Oh yeah. That's not guaranteed. Yeah, that's not guaranteed. It'll be like. Have you ever seen those World War I photos where the guys are literally, you got one with his like hand on the wheel and the other one's looking over, and he has like a monocle like telescope with one hand and he's holding the bomb with the other, and he's like, got it, like, whoo. Yeah.
Did the SPAD 13 have an air-to-air capability?
Yeah. Did the Sopwith Camel have air-to-air capability?
Deploy the Sopwith Camel to take out the Soviet AWACS.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll never see it coming.
They will never see it. Yeah, there is. Maybe, yeah. Maybe that's a form of like psychological warfare. You send over your F-117 and it's like, we're not even gonna waste our B-2 on you. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, I'm not even gonna bother with you. It's like you jump the white.
You don't scare us enough.
Yeah, it's like when you.
We're not gonna bring our big guns to the fight.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah. It's like protesters jumping like the White House fence, and they just come out with like tasers and dogs, and it's like, we're not even gonna like unleash the snipers. Like that's how. You're just kind of like here's like a demerit, like get out of here,
We'll just like unleash some cats.
Yeah, seriously, release the cats.
You don't warn a German Shepherd.
Yeah, I know, right? It's, yeah, yeah, seriously, yeah. But maybe that's what it is. That's what I was said to David is, maybe they didn't even hold. Maybe they didn't have air-to-air capabilities. Maybe this is a psychological operation. We had air, you could say two things. One, our technological capabilities. So these had air-to-air 40 years ago. And two, our secrecy is so good that you didn't even know about it till 2020 that we had air-to-air. Those both serve as two very real psychological. Those have value. Because if it's coming out now, or even historians such as you and David didn't know about it, well, if this was on purpose and you got the KGB or the CCP looking at this and they're like, wait, we didn't know about this. Well, all of a sudden, now everything's flipped. Wait, do we know everything about the B-2 that we thought we knew about the B-2? What about the F-22? So it's, wait, what other secrets do they have? So that's what I think is, at the very least, there's very real psychological value to that, value for us as a psychological weapon.
Sure.
The other thing I thought was, maybe you send the F-117 over there because in these proxy wars that China and Russia, they're painting him with radar. They're trying to get as much SIGINT and ELINT as they can. So why even bother with a B-2? or an F-22, why give them free, even though these aren't classified things, they're publicly acknowledged, why give it to them?
Yeah.
It's always, you never want to give anything to them. So even if it's just something like Libya or Syria,
right.
Don't give them a reason. Don't give them free information.
Don't give them what they have.
Exactly. Here's the F-117, eat your heart out. It's
and I think there's always a bit of a risk in that. If we develop a capability that another country doesn't have, once that capability is no longer secret, now that means other countries have that capability.
Yeah.
And so do we want to have to counter the very things that we've developed?
Yeah. It could even be like we're flying the F-117 over there, and they know that they're like, so one, there's the psychological value. Hey, they're sending their F-117s, not their B-2s. So now that sets up the precedent for, they will fly their older stuff. So now all of a sudden, if you start seeing B-2s, the logical conclusion is going to be, so now they're sending us their B-2s. Does that mean there's something better on the back burner? Because now the B-2s are there. Now that's their slap.
Yeah.
That's their release the cats. It's,
Sure.
No, they're using their B-2s. What are they holding? What else is back there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But just kind of flipping to being the contrarian again.
Yeah.
To the fewer aircraft that you have flying, the more expensive it is, per aircraft permission to keep that going. And so I would think there has to be a point of, if you're only keeping a handful of a certain aircraft going, the cost of that really becomes prohibitive in a way, because you've got to, on the F-117, you've got the radar absorbent material.
Wow.
Every airplane has its unique things. I'm not necessarily a fan of the F-22, but part of the criticism of how much it costs per airplane is because at one time there was going to be a lot more airplanes.
900.
And the more you build, the lower the cost gets.
Yeah.
So you can kind of become and the same thing with the B-2, right? When people talk about how expensive a B-2 is, well, if you had built and produced more of them, then the cost per unit goes down.
Yeah.
So, but some of that becomes a little bit of a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that we don't let you build as many as you wanted, and then we criticize you for how much they cost.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying that is because let's imagine a scenario where we're keeping a dozen F-117s going around the world. I would wonder if that really is cost prohibitive. Just thinking about what it would entail to maintain those, to keep those in a stealth, fully stealth, like you mentioned. The smallest crew is enough to expand the radar signature. That would take a lot of money.
Yeah.
To keep a very small fleet of aircraft available to go into places like Libya and Afghanistan that really would have very little benefit of using an F-117.
That's true. Maybe it's offset. Maybe it does cost an arm and a leg, but losing a B-2 costs 2 arms and 2 legs. It's again.
But are we? I'm not trying to diss other countries, but are we really in danger of losing?
No.
An F-16 that could drop something from miles and miles away.
Yeah.
To Libya and Afghanistan. I mean.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I could think of is in Skunk Works by Ben Rich, he talks about when they were going to use the F-117 against Gaddafi, and at the last moment, Casper Weinberger, the SecDef under Reagan, called it off. And it wasn't that this wasn't fit for Libya. He was just like, I don't want the Russians to know about it, so we'll go use something else. And it ended up kind of botching the whole operation. But that's the only thing I could think of is...
It's kind of like poker when you want to play that card.
Yeah. Do you want to burn that card? Exactly. It's the only thing I can think of is... But it doesn't really make sense with this analogy. So the idea of using your F-117s now instead of your B-2s, but the B-2s are known. It's so it doesn't really work there.
And for the majority of targets that we would have today, why would you even use the B-2? I mean, why wouldn't you just use, F-16s or
stop with camels? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Who knows, man? It's I don't know. I can only think of. I feel like it would have to be psychological weight.
Right.
If the F-117s are, maybe it's just we're willing to go burn our F-117s in these backwards deserts because we're keeping the B-2, we're keeping the the flying wing of death. We're saving that for Russia, China, India, Pakistan. We're saving these for people that do pose a threat. That's the only thing I can think of is just making
scenarios where you really do have
competent nations.
Yeah, our radar system that you have to deal with.
It's not a bunch of 70-year-old guys using 50-year-old AKs in 10,000-year-old caves. It's actually competent nations. Even I don't know. I mean, we know China is always stealing our cyber warfare. We know they're always attacking the defense contractors. Maybe it's just we're trying to pull the cards even closer. Mm-hmm. There are possibly updates to the B-2, and you're not gonna see anything.
Sure. And why would you?
Exactly.
Again, to go back to poker as an analogy, because who better person to make poker analogies than a pastor?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Why would you show your cards?
Yeah. It's that made me think of Ben Rich talking about how he got an award for the F-117 from Caspar Weinberger, but he couldn't show anyone. It just said in recognition of a significant event. And the analogy he used is when he could finally show his kids and tell his kids about it, he said it was like the what was it? The tight-lipped rabbi who hit a hole-in-one on the Sabbath. Can't tell anyone. So but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just, again, as a biology degree, I'm trying to decipher the intelligence agency's hand. Using the F-117 or even saying it has air-to-air capabilities.
Well, and I would really go back to whether it's a weapon system, whether it's a war plan. At some point or another, really everything is on the table.
Yeah.
And every possibility gets discussed, and every contingency gets planned for. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I would make the leap from, this one thing was discussed and maybe even explored. Who knows? What was explored in 1985 before any of us knew about the F-117.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be hesitant to make the jump from here's something that we've looked at to I would never have considered the F-117 as the premier air-to-air weapon of the Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just what you said, contingency plans. That's what I saw someone on Reddit make a comment, and it was maybe it's we keep the F-117s young and healthy and moving because it's in the event of an all-out war, we would probably lose the B-2s fairly quickly. Why not keep the F-117s? Because although they're 40 years old, they're still very good.
Yeah.
So why not just have this whole fleet that's already paid, bought, researched, flown, experienced with? Why not keep this whole thing? You have your You're on the White House, right? You have your turrets and your lasers and your... But why not keep an old shotgun under the desk? Just in case. Why not get some of the muskets and the cannons, right? Why not unleash the Sopwith Campbells if all else fails? And we have devolved...
Open up the Air Force Museum in Dayton.
Yeah, the attack they never saw coming.
There's a B-36 in there that's just waiting to go.
Exactly. Get out. What's that oldest ship in the Navy? The USS Constitution? It's literally wood. Get that thing out there, man. No one will see it coming. They're looking for the Zumwalt and the USS Gerald Ford. They'll never see this puppy coming. They haven't had embargoes on gunpowder in 2 centuries. Yeah. That's what we'll do, man. That would throw them for a loop, I guess. I mean, would you even take it seriously if a bunch of soldiers started marching across your homeland in squares with cannons and like top hats and fluffy hair? Man, if there's not some psychological value in that,
that'd be enough to cause you to pause.
Yeah, exactly. That would, at the very least. Do you remember that thing? It was from, I believe, early on in the War on Terror, but they called it like the kitty cannon, and it was something I believe the Israeli Defense Force was using. But it was a gun with a pistol on the. It was an assault rifle with a pistol on the end, and the pistol could bend around corners, and that's what they were using it to prevent ambushes. And then someone was like, they just took a stuffed kitty and they just put it on the pistol, and they said, so the bad guys would be around the corner waiting to blast, and all of a sudden they'd see a kitty, and for a split second it was, what in the world? You're in the middle of Fallujah and there's a kitty at eye height 6 feet up, and before you could even realize that there was a barrel protruding from it, game over. I don't know, man. Maybe there's just go in there with with your muskets. Yeah,
because those are really accurate.
Yeah. Well, it's all a distraction. So the F-117 comes. Maybe that's it. Maybe the F-117 is a distraction. Why are they using the F-117 and no one's looking up at 100,000 feet because there's some hypersonic bomber? I was going to say, do you know anything about the Loyal Wingman drones?
No, I don't.
Oh. Well, that was a question someone had. Is that Australia apparently purchased a bunch of Loyal Wingman drones. They want to,
again, I retired in 2006.
Yeah.
And at that time, the UAVs and the UCAVs were really just coming out into their own.
Sure. Yeah. Do you think there would be any value for the F-117 so what you were saying is, as these technologies are no longer classified, other nations can get a hold of them, so now we have to assume that they have them. Well, we would take old F-4 Phantoms, right, and we'd bring them out to like Area 51 or the Nellis Test Range, and they turn them into drones, and that's what we go up there and test our new fighter jets on them and blow them out of the sky. I wonder if that's what F-117's the purpose is. Bring them up there, and can we take these down?
You're gonna make me cry. Don't do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. it's
like my baby.
All F-117s go to heaven. I promise. It's yeah. My friend is my friend's a mathematician, and I had him on the other day, and I was coming up with some analogy. I was like, do you think there are life forms in the universe somewhere else where our math isn't even real to them? And you just take it back. Take it back. So I realized as I was saying this, you're like, don't say that. It's my baby. Yeah.
So what do you say, Mr. Biologist?
What do I say?
Yeah. How would you answer that question?
With the F-117s or the math?
No. The other life forms with the math that doesn't exist. Or...
Yeah, the only thing I could think of is why not?
Yeah.
If we always seem to, whenever we write off life as it cannot, we think we have it figured out.
Yeah, life is pernicious. We find
extremophiles at the bottom of the ocean. We went down to the Mariana Trench, Challenger Deep, 36,000 feet under the surface. 36,000 feet. And they got to the bottom, and there are these, there's still life forms going around there. We find them on sulfuric acid vents. We find them in lakes with arsenic. They find them on the surface of satellites, where they can survive re-entry. So another form, then you'd have to go into, is math a universal language? You know, are there other forms of atoms in the universe? No, I think that's pretty universal. So I don't know, you know, is math universal? As someone that failed pre-calculus 4 times in college, it's, you know, I don't know. The only thing I could think of is just like we could see in different forms on the electromagnetic spectrum, maybe they see patterns that we don't. So maybe it wouldn't be that our math is wrong so much as they have a completely different.
Right.
We're on the same spectrum.
Almost like 2 different languages.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Still a thing. Can't communicate. Maybe they just see in ways that we don't. I don't know. Again, as someone that failed math 4 times, I might not be the guy to speak on it. But hopefully that goes to show just how relaxed this podcast is I can feel free to talk about math, and so yeah, no one can be disappointed. If you're disappointed, don't listen. So it's yeah, man, it's
figure it out yourself and come back and tell
exactly.
us.
Yeah, come back on. If you don't like it, unplug. I don't care. So having worked on the F-117, got about 15 more minutes. What was your favorite thing about it? Is there just something that, you know, it's your baby? Is there something that just, like, even though I did not go to medical school, I got in but did not go, and I'm glad I didn't. There are still things about, like, studying 7 days a week. There's still something about that is like my baby. Like, I don't wish to go back, but there's still things I kind of adore about it.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular that, even if it's not of value to anyone else, is there anything about it that yeah, you just have a soft spot for?
I think that's a really good question, and it's one I've never thought about before. But I really like your analogy there at the end, because, you know, I retired in 2006. The F-117s weren't too far behind me. And the thing I think that I valued about it was really the closeness of the community.
Okay.
You know, there was only 50 some F-117s, and so it was a very close knit group of people. And like, you know, I mentioned I spent time at Langley and at Lake and Heath where there were F-15s, but there were F-15s at lots of bases.
Yeah.
You could be an F-15 person here and an F-15 person here and never know about each other.
Yeah.
But there was a really close, deep relationship within the F-117 community itself that was unlike anywhere else I was in the Air Force. I remember the night that the F-117 got shot down over Serbia, and I was at Holloman at the time, and that night there was a going away ceremony. If I remember right, it was the vice wing commander was leaving. So, you know, the number 2 person on the base is leaving.
Sure.
You know, so all of, you know, the leadership that was at the base was there at the officers club. And, you know, the wing commander coming in throughout the night with different updates, huddled together around CNN, watching one of our airplanes burn and not knowing what happened to our brother. And then him coming in, the wing commander coming in and saying, "We got it." I've got goosebumps right now, and this happened in 1999.
Yeah.
And that may be a somewhat extreme example.
No, it's perfect.
But there's within the Air Force, there is no other community like it that was so close, so relational. Everybody knew each other. Everybody was in it together. You know, the F-117 was a single seat plane.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first time somebody flew in an F-117, they were flying solo.
Yeah.
And so there's something about that, you know, about that. I'm flying solo. I'm flying stealth. depending on what the weather is that night, there may not be a lot of other aircraft out there in the sky. So it's almost a dichotomy that the F-117 was a bit of this lone ranger.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. And yet within that community, because of that lone ranger aspect, there is a tightness and a closeness that you don't always get in the bigger weapon systems or in the bigger missions.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I mean, you're going to be out there by yourself,
right,
in denied territory,
right,
carrying out a lethal mission, and death if you crash or taken prisoner. No, I think that makes perfect sense, because it's like I had on Mike Durant, the pilot that was shot down in the Battle of Mogadishu, and in his book, In the Company of Heroes, he starts with just how close he was with his flight crew, because he was like, I knew that I could be going into a war zone the next day, just above the rooftops at full speed. And he goes, but he's like, I only just had to focus on flying. I never had to worry about, are all the screws tight? Is it fueled? He was like, every day I got on that thing, polished, down to my gloves and helmet were just the way I like it. They had everything perfect for me. And because of that, you become very entwined. It's not just there's a gunner in the back. And right. I mean, he talks about that's what crushed him so hard when he was taken captive, was realizing on the news that everyone else was dead. It wasn't just oh no, other Americans are dead. It was like, these guys were my best friends. Like, we would do summer with each other. Our kids grew up together. And I think that makes perfect sense. It's not just you're out there on your own. It's you're out there on your own, and all your guys are like, the quality of their job in preparing the plane and maintaining it is directly correlated to your buddy's safety. And he's out there by himself. You want him to be doing the best he can. I think that makes perfect sense, and I never would have thought about that. Maybe there's some value to having a low number of aircraft. Maybe they know that you can get that bond. I don't know.
It does create a really strong web of connection and trust. And reliance on each other.
Yeah, maybe, man. I don't know. I don't think I can top that. I think we should wrap it up, because that was that was so beautiful. I don't want to jump in with. So how about the Sopwith camels? Even though I just did. So,
what would Eddie Rickenbacker say?
Yeah, no, yeah, right. Send in the Sopwith camels. That's the end all be all. Man, that's how you disperse the protesters. Is you send out Sopwith camels with tear gas. And it's just they're sending out the camels like. Greg Henneman, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for doing this podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
And Jay, to address it one more time, you're not disappointing anyone, man. I loved it. Thank you so much for coming on. It means the world to me, and I appreciate it. That was a beautiful ending. That was a beautiful story. And if anything else comes out about the F-117, I'm just going to assume that you've been lying to me and that you work for the CIA, and I will be deeply insulted. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great one. Thank you.
Bye.